Hello, and welcome
Hello.
to Let's Talk. What are we even calling this now?
Well, you wanted to keep it with the Let's Talk Spoop side. I'm calling it Welcome to the Asylum. I think we're calling it like Let's Talk Spoop subscript Welcome to the
Welcome to
Asylum.
the Asylum.
Something like that. I think that's what we're going with. I like Welcome to the Asylum. I think it rolls well. I don't know.
But
That's
I like
me.
the adorable spoop ghost behind you, though, in the logo, because they're
Right?
adorable.
That's cute. Thanks to Tanya. I appreciate her. Tanya and
uh,
Lauren
and my wife.
and your wife. Yeah, it's adorable.
But today we're talking about the second film in our view of everything in the Asylum. Mega Python versus Gatoroid. Came out in 2011 on Sci-Fi Channel. In case you couldn't tell by the fact it's called Mega Python versus Gatoroid, which is like sci-fi crack. Um, and it stars Debbie Gibson and Tiffany. Yep, those are the names.
That's just
And
her name. Turns out, Tiffany, I didn't know this, is a musician. She is a pop musician. She did a bunch of covers, and then Debbie Gibson is also a musician, so also a pop musician, both from the '80s. So this was two '80s former pop stars as your deuteragonists in this movie.
with guest appearance by an even earlier 60s, 70s pop star uh, from the Monkees. And he didn't get to perform.
Yeah, man.
Right,
That
he
was
did
such
this
a
movie right when they did a comeback tour, which is weird. Before some of them started dying.
Well, they even made a reference to it in the movie where the Barbara, the PR lady, was like, "You guys should get back together and do a comeback tour." And he was like, "We did that back in the '80s," and like just moved on. But then they actually did do a comeback tour.
If those who
So
don't know, we're talking about Micky Dolenz, who was in this movie.
yeah,
But so yeah, Mega Python versus Gatoroid. So before we start, what did you think this movie was going to be?
I had hoped deep down in my heart that it was going to literally be a knockout down, drag out brawl between a gator and a snake in the middle of the city. That was the hope.
Yeah, I thought it'd be something related to Godzilla, but
Yeah.
something like that. Because the poster, if you look at this poster, it's behind me. That looks like something out of Rampage.
Yeah,
Now it
right?
came out before Rampage, quite a bit before Rampage. So it clearly wasn't. They probably made something off of Rampage. It's probably called like Onslaught or like Smash or something, but or Rampage X. But it looks like something out of Rampage. This is not. So
No.
this movie has Tiffany, who plays a park ranger in the Everglades,
Terry
who
O'Hara.
who notices that people keep on dying from snakes.
Well, no. So she she notices that the gators are dying.
Oh yes,
So
and they think poachers are killing him,
the
who
movie
can't shoot very
opens.
well.
The movie opens with Debbie Gibson's character Micky, Dr. Riley, and her two assistants, Gia and Ben Paul.
Other dude.
Yeah, dude, Gia and dude, breaking into a rich guy's atrium. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yep, to steal a
Yeah,
bunch of snakes back.
and stealing all the snakes, and then just releasing them into the Everglades,
Some terribly CGI snakes. Those snakes were awful looking.
Which is even more hilarious because her character is supposed to be a doctor that knows about, like, she's supposed to be an environmental doctor, right? And she should know, of all people, that you don't just release some non-indigenous species into the environment and hope it goes well. Like, that's not what happens. I live here in Hawaii, and like that happened here, and then their solution was to bring another non-indigenous species to kill it, but then it turned out that the two species weren't a natural predator-prey relationship. So then we just ended up with two pest species here. Like, that's what happens when you do something like that. So that's how it opens, and then there's these redneck hillbilly hunters that they're not poachers, they're hunters. They had like legitimate licenses.
They want hunting licenses, and they were told no.
Yeah, because
I love they're forcing their way in though. They're like, we're here, we're gonna get a license. No, we said no, we're getting our license.
We're gonna hunt something. But they are trying to get licenses to hunt gators because they're trying to control the gator population. But now the gator population is no longer high, and so as they try to investigate that, that's how they find out that there's these snakes
that are huge.
Killing these gators. Bay is awake.
In very unsnake-like ways.
Very unsnake-like ways. Stay out of the world,
the only
Bay.
time they actually eat like a snake is when they eat a train later. But on that note, so then these gators are dying, and they find out these snakes are eating them, and random people get eaten by snakes. In ways that, like, snakes don't just like eat dogs and like leave carcasses there. They don't like eat body parts off people, and they get told, we need to bring in this expert.
They kept finding like fully dismembered bodies where they'd find like the arms and the legs and the torso all separate from each other, which makes absolutely no sense. My personal favorite is there's like one random ranger guy that's like investigating, and the snake like pops out of the side and latches onto his arm and then drags him off screen. And it's just like, what?
That's not how snakes work at all. But they get told how they should talk to this one ranger dude, and she says, no, instead I'm going to go talk to this guy about drugs. And he tells her about this experimental drug that makes it so things don't stop growing. And her response is, I know how we can stop the snakes. We're going to pour this into the Everglades and the swamps, and the gators are going to eat it, and they're going to kill the snakes. And then when the ranger guy
possibly go wrong?
And then the ranger guy comes anyway and goes, and they're like, it has been an issue for a while. I was like, dude, there are some really giant eggs, like the size of our head. No, we haven't had any deaths in quite a while because clearly our solution fixed it. And there's the awesome montage of all the gators growing, and then the snakes eating the gator eggs, causing the snakes to grow, shedding skin.
It's a wonderful montage.
And then now we have giant gators and giant snakes, but they aren't really fighting each other. They're just like eating everything and everyone. And we get a delicious party of they were one of the smoother ones to try to get donations to
so they're trying to build an estuary to maintain the Everglades or whatever.
Yep.
So they were having this party. It's a bunch of rich people in like nice outfits, and that's where Micky Dolenz comes in. He was supposed to be the entertainment.
Yep.
And then Diego, the guy, shows up. He's the Native American ranger.
Not medicine man, at least. Thank goodness. It's not like the original Firestarter where they had what's his name? A very not American. The guy who plays Patton playing a Native American. Like, dude, no.
Right. So he rolls in and he yells, "If you've got a gun, get it." And then literally every single person at the party pulls out a gun to shoot these giant gators and snakes. While at the same time, Debbie Gibson and Tiffany are having probably the greatest cat fight of all time.
And they end up in the water somehow, wearing like tight dresses, and somehow they end up in water. I'm not sure where the water was.
I'm not sure.
And these gators and snakes are all coming with the same animation the entire time, as all these people are shooting. So I like to call this movie Gun Safety the Movie, because anytime the first time you see Debbie Gibson driving, a bullet goes through the front of her car that was apparently aimed at the ground. Who knows how far away, because she parks and gets out of the car and goes to the woods with these guys shooting at snakes. And these guys shoot at snakes that are on the ground while shooting up in the air, shooting all around. And during that party, all these people have guns and they're just shooting them everywhere. I'm surprised no one's dead.
They're all shooting upward, but so they're shooting at like, Bay, let go of my hand. Let go. Thank you. They're all shooting like this, but we're talking about gators and snakes. So like, nah.
And then these gators and snakes get into a city, and they said they're heading towards Miami, or maybe they get into Miami, including a nuclear power plant for some reason. And then they say we're going to get all these gator snakes back to where the eggs are, because if the eggs hatch, everyone's going to die because the eggs are huge, and we're going to blow them up. And of course, the eco person knows how to use explosives.
Right, because she's not a terrorist.
I like her answer. She's not a terrorist. Yeah. What's her answer? She's not a terrorist. She's something else.
She's not a terrorist. She's an environmentalist.
And they have this showdown with snakes and things, and both girls die. And Native American becomes head of the.
Yeah, Diego somehow becomes the head of the park rangers, even though he's not part of them.
They open up something in memorial to those two with like the most hideous etching I've seen. But so at least you can tell from the description already. Like from the very beginning of this movie, I could tell it's better than Battle Star Wars because the camera moves. There's like an actual cameraman that does stuff interesting, and the director's clearly aware of this movie. Everyone in this movie is clearly aware of what they're doing.
Very clearly. There's a scene where Dr. Riley is leading a protest against the hunters in front of the ranger station. And in the scene, one of the people in her like group is wearing a Debbie Gibson t-shirt. And one of the other people in the group is wearing a Tiffany t-shirt. Like they 100% just embraced the entire concept of what they were doing with this movie. Like, we're going to make a movie and it's not going to be good, but it's going to be on purpose. Just like the Sharknado movies or Evil Dead 2.
Or what about like the assistant to the park ranger who's told, whatever you do not let this guy into the party.
RJ? I love RJ.
And he fails pretty miserably. So
he gets distracted by a sound in the woods and just runs off in the opposite direction. And then while he's like running away, not even off camera yet, Diego just like whoop, runs past. And then RJ trips, falls to his knees, and then begins to army crawl as if he had done it on purpose. So friggin' good.
So one thing to say, first of all, the CGI in this movie is terrible. Some of it's, I'll say some is terrible, some's just bad. Like the snakes at the beginning, pretty terrible. Other ones are just bad because like they'll move, but it'll be the same looping animation the whole time, or they'll look like they're moving fast, but then suddenly they don't move anymore. Like you see walking, but they're not actually moving forward until the characters are where they want them to be.
Or like where Micky is pushing all the parts out of the way because she's in the water, and she like goes to push the giant piece of meat, and her hand like goes through it before it moves.
Or like when they're trying to save her and her assistants with a helicopter, and she gets on. Like, why can't you all hold on to the ladder, for crying out loud?
Right.
But like nothing's moving until it's the last one, until it's the Asian's turn, and then they're suddenly moving. This movie's This movie is pretty dang funny for me. It's ridiculous. It's pretty terrible. The CG, it is what it is. It's not as good as say Sharknado, but Sharknado had more money, and also came out, 7 years later.
Yeah, right. This movie was made in 2011, so made in 2011 with
sci-fi, without the budget, because like Sharknado was unintentionally successful.
True.
And okay, so we have what would you say about did this movie? We all know this was not what we thought it was going to be at all. In fact, I'm not even sure what they're spoofing.
Maybe Godzilla. I don't know. They have like Asylum's got a whole collection of like giant monster attack movies, and I think that they were just like continuing on. Again, this is a sci-fi one, and like Sharknado wasn't spoofing anything. It was just like an original sci-fi idea. So this might not have been a spoof.
One day we're gonna get to Mansquito.
Jeez. I think that you can look on the Wikipedia page, and it lists like what's being spoofed in the Wikipedia page, like how Titanic 666 was a spoof of Room 666.
Actually, my guess is Anaconda. Come think of it.
Maybe, but did an Anaconda movie release in 2011?
Well, there's like 3 or 4 different Anaconda movies. Red Orchid, I think, was made by Sci-Fi.
But like the first Anaconda movie was released in like
97.
Yeah, like, and that movie wasn't that great of a movie that it would be spoofable.
So some of this. They said a good chunk of this movie was recycled footage from Mega Shark versus Crocosaurus.
That's true. I saw that.
One
day we might actually review that. Who knows?
Heck, the wheel might give it to us next week. Wait, let's so you know, Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark is a sequel to this movie with Debbie Gibson. Well, that makes no sense. I don't know how that works.
She plays a different character. Oh, we forgot to mention that after the party, there's still like a solid 40 minutes left in this movie. And that whole time, Debbie Gibson and Tiffany are still in their party dresses for the whole rest of the movie.
Really, so they're tight just like party dresses.
They're looking real good for the whole rest of the movie.
And they keep on hitting on the native guy. And the old lady who's with him, who works for the Park Service, keeps on trying to keep him apart, but then she gets eaten in the worst like slow motion death thing ever.
I was so sad that she died. I love that lady.
Especially since she doesn't know how to use a gun. She knows how to hold it and do this, but then she's like...
Fairly certain that she was supposed to be dating the steroid guy. Fairly certain. I think that was a joke that they put in there. There's also like a scene where she tells Terry that she looks good, and Terry says, "You look good too," and she goes, "I know, it's a curse." I thought that was great.
And yeah, so this movie doesn't really have good music. No one really cares. Acting is
the montage.
Yes. Okay, I'll go with that one. The acting is what it is. It's not distractingly bad like the last movie. I think you froze, Don. I was just saying the acting is fine for this movie.
Yeah, so the music, the montage scene where the gators are eating the snakes, are eating the gators, are eating the snakes, and they're like
and the eggs and all that. Yeah,
that song, fantastic, absolute.
Yes, I'll go with that.
It's funny to me that they had 3 musicians in this movie, and none of them were involved with the music at all. You would have thought
they probably couldn't afford their music.
Yeah, you would have thought that Debbie Gibson would have sung the montage song or something, but no, she did not.
I will say it avoids a lot of the pitfalls of they could have done something crazy with that nuclear reactor and became nuclear gators and sharks. But instead they use pheromones to get them back. Somehow they all come back to the same pheromone. I wasn't aware gators and sharks are not sharks. Gators and snakes are following the same pheromone. Also, not sure how they got them all back, but that plane crashed pretty far from that nest. So were they just carrying it, dumping it as they went? Because no, he blew up the plane.
No, so she got the pheromones out of the plane before it exploded, got into that car that was there, and then if you watch the movie, the trunk to the car was open the whole time, if you were paying attention, because she had put the pheromones in the trunk and was spilling them out the back.
All that junk inside her trunk.
Which somehow, 2 5-gallon barrels was enough to drag them back from wherever. I was very happy they didn't do the nuclear thing because, as I said before in my Sharknado video, on principle, I hate anything that inaccurately represents nuclear power, and I was real concerned.
Does that include Godzilla?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I thought Godzilla was Godzilla is made technically as a...
Godzilla is an anti-nuclear,
Well, it's made by the people who were most traumatized by it, though.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes sense, but again, it doesn't properly represent nuclear power, and
but at least as far as that one goes, but at least as far as Godzilla goes, it works better as Godzilla because it's made from the history of the nuclear bomb versus nuclear
Well,
power does it.
depends upon which Godzilla you're talking about. But every Godzilla is in some way, shape, or form a commentary on nuclear power.
Yeah.
Not to get on a political soapbox, but the inaccurate representation and understanding of nuclear power by society and civilization in general is holding back our entire civilization, and is probably why we still have such a massive reliance on fossil fuels, and is causing a huge problem with our economy right now, because nuclear power is our most sustainable force of power.
So I'm looking at this. I'm looking at reviews for this movie, and I think I agree with most of them. You know, one of the big review sites, like Entertainment Weekly, said this does something that stalwarts as a genre, such as Sharktopus, Dino Croc versus Super Gator, did not do. It called attention to how bad, campy, and trashy it was, and the actors did everything except wink coyly at the camera. I agree. Or another one said this movie knows exactly what it is and doesn't try to surprise you with any sort of quality element to make the time you spent watching to have meaning. Just fun.
Not any kind of quality element. I like that. Might have to use that the next time I review a movie.
So I have to say this: like they clearly have some money in this one because they're actually flying a helicopter. Though I don't think the person in a helicopter knows how to pick people up. Either that or the stunt people / actors, whoever was grabbing that ropes, didn't know what they were doing, because like each time it looked like they were trying to get lower and lower and lower and lower to try to get them up, and then like they didn't know how to climb the ladder.
Yeah, right. But again, it makes no sense. So they drop the ladder down.
Yes.
So the smart thing is the first person climbs up, and as they're climbing, the next person starts climbing the ladder, and then once they get everybody on the ladder, you raise up a little higher to get them out of the danger zone. None of that happened with either of the scenes in which
they waited for everyone to get all the way to the top before anyone else did. I know it's a small helicopter, and it probably had weight issues, but what?
Yeah. Well,
and then I like how they.
By everybody get up to the top, you mean Debbie Gibson, because she's the only one that survived either of those.
I do find it hilarious, though, how they had, how they have Chekhov's gun, how they had Chekhov's snakehead. At the very beginning, the part guy is talking about snake, that little rubber snake thing, because the snakes can still bite you later, and what happens at the very, very end? Giant snakes and all these severed heads. For some reason, there's severed heads. I wasn't aware explosions go off and it just blows the heads off. Well, I was not aware that's how it works.
There were a lot of other pieces and parts, but yes, there's like 4 severed heads.
They cleanly cut off a bunch of snake heads
with an explosion,
and then they bite her in half, which I found hilarious.
Good Lord!
And then they wanted to memorialize them because the 2 people that caused the deaths of who knows how many people are now getting a terrifying plaque.
Literally, the entire events of this movie was their fault. One of my favorite things about the movie actually is the fact that neither of the deuteragonists is likable. They're both terrible people, and you don't like either one of them at all. And they set it up real early where both of them are just real friggin' rude all the time. And you're just like, oh, what? And then they just hold it, and you're like, I hate both of these people. And they both died, and I was happy.
And they gave them both a cat fight.
Yeah.
Because America needed a cat fight.
Fact.
So with this movie, I would recommend it. It's not a good movie, but it's certainly entertaining for an hour and a half.
It's one of those so bad it's enjoyable films, Yeah. It's up there. Like Sharknado is another one, even though.
Did you enjoy this more than Sharknado?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. Except for Sharknado 6. Sharknado 6 was pretty fantastic. But yeah, overall.
Just wait till you see Zombie Tidal Wave.
Overall, against like the first Sharknado, absolutely. This was way better in my opinion. But yeah, it's up there with like Sharknado, Boa versus Python, movies like that where it's like so bad, but it's clearly like a tongue-in-cheek. We're doing it because we want it to be bad. For the people that are like us that like to watch bad horror movies for fun.
And they had more actors than Battlestar Wars. They had actual set. That helps that they could film this quote unquote on Earth, where they can use like normal locations. They had more actors, like even the hunters, like they've all been in other things. Like you could probably recognize them all in other things. They were all pretty terrible in this movie, and they definitely don't like. I don't understand. If you have an AK go underwater, you're not going to pick it up, go on your boat, and then be able to shoot things with it like that. That thing is wet. And then shotgun apparently never gets wet. It just keeps on shooting.
Fact. It also never runs out of ammo.
Also, I wasn't where you hunt snakes with AK-47s.
I mean, you hunt snakes with what you got. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that one dude ran a snake over to kill it.
That was hilarious. That was awesome, actually. And she still was terrible to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
How dare you kill the snake that was going to bite my head off?
It was literally about to eat me. If he had just killed that snake, I think that the whole rest of the movie would, or if he had not killed that snake, the whole rest of the movie would have been entirely different. Like, it would never happen.
But then that poor guy died anyway.
I know, right?
He was a nice guy.
It was a sad scene.
But I saw it on Tubi, right? Yeah. Tubi. Worth seeing. If you're into this type of movie, this is a good.
On Tubi.
This is a good version of the campy, this random things fight each other movie.
Yeah.
It knows what it is. It's aware of what it is. Nothing is too painful. And as long as you're aware of that, yeah, go enjoy it. 90 minutes, you can do a lot worse, especially in the asylum. Especially in the asylum.
Especially with the entire concept of what we're watching. So, Asylum's got some stakes.
Let's look. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah. Wheel of Morality. Turn, turn, turn.
Let's
Tell
see
us
what
the
we
movie
get.
that we should watch. Come on, Alan Quartermain.
Something good.
Come on, Alan
It's going to be
Quartermain.
13.
Come on, Alan Quartermain. Come on. Mega Fault.
Mega Fault.
That's got to be San Andreas. That has got to be a mockbuster of San Andreas. It's got to be.
Let me see. Mega Fault, 2009 disaster film from the Asylum. Has Brittany Murphy in it? Wait, has a real actor in this movie?
Actor, yeah.
Before she died not that long after this, but
I think
real
so.
Actor?
Yeah, right. During the height of her career.
It's her final role before she died.
Oh goodness. That's something to be proud of. It's just like, what was that one movie I watched? Oh man. The one that had the two separate names depending upon where you watched it because they rebranded the name to try to sell it again. It was this famous actor's last movie. It's just like that's what you want attached to your last film on Earth is an Asylum film. That's what you want to be remembered for.
I assume this is San Andreas, but it's about the North Atlantic, or it could have been. No, San Andreas came after.
No, San Andreas was a couple years later, wasn't it? Early 2010.
Yeah, but this came out 2000. This came out 2009.
Oh, let's look. Wikipedia.
So 2012 was 2012.
Yeah. San Andreas was much later.
So.
Hey, stop trying to dump yourself.
So this was in a line of when they had to be very careful with movie names because they had been sued by a lot of people. So 20th Century Fox sued them over the day the Earth stopped. Universal sued them over American Battleship. That's how they changed it to American Warships.
That makes
sense.
And
of course, WB and everyone else who owns the rights sued them over Age of Hobbits, later called Lord of the Elves, later called something else, Clash of Empires, I think, because literally everyone who had any sort of rights in Tolkien said no.
What year did you say this came out? 2011?
2009.
2009.
It has a 3.0 out of 10. That's better than the 1.8 that Battlestar Wars had.
It's not even showing up on the wiki.
It's on wiki. I see it.
Bea, stop trying to dump yourself, sweetie.
But Mega Fault is the one we're going to be watching next. It looks like it's available streaming on Tubi and Pluto. So another one there. It stars Brittany Murphy as a doctor. Eric LaSalle's in here. That's another person I've actually heard of. You know Eric LaSalle is, right? He's in Coming to America, Logan, 1 Hour Photo, Jacob's Ladder.
Huh.
He's in a lot of movies. Black guy. Paul Logan's in here.
Paul Logan, really?
And not Logan Paul. and a few actors from X-Men and Runaway Jury. Interesting. This one actually might have. This one has real actors in it. Let's and the guy who directed it did.
Oh, it's another sci-fi original.
The guy who directed it is known for his Scarecrow Slayer,
which is another Asylum film, if I remember correctly.
And Jane White is Sick and Twisted, Wildflower, and War of the Worlds, the Asylum version. So we'll see what this is. It's on Tubi TV. It's on Pluto TV if you want to watch it with us. It's called Megafault, and that is the one we're going to be watching next week. So tune in. And if you saw Megapython versus Gatoroid, tell us your thoughts. Did you like it? For what it is.
Off in the comments. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you like what we do here, and if you want to see more of my adorable little baby.
And remember, this is the Asylum films. We're not comparing these to like major Hollywood productions with money. True. This is Asylum. But sound off. Let's see what you think.